A young adult leader began his class with a story. There was a guy by the name of Steve. Now, Steve was a kind of a quiet, shy, he was a weird kid. As he grew up, he had two friends that were his lifelong friends, Ben and Lynn. Whenever Ben or Lynn needed something, Steve was always there for them. For example, when during high school, Ben didn't have enough money to buy lunch, Steve would always give him money or give him part of his lunch. And while Ben would say, I'll pay you back, man, thanks for it, Steve kind of knew in the back of his mind that he would never get paid back for it. And when Lynn, in college, had broke up with her boyfriend that she had from high school, and she was upset and couldn't get any of her other friends to answer her call, she knew that Steve would show up, and he did. He comforted her throughout the entire night, and he helped her make her feel loved during that time period. Now, the same couldn't be said for Lynn and Ben being there for Steve. For example, when Steve had his 16th birthday, he invited Ben and Lynn to his birthday party, but they didn't show up because there was a new movie playing. Again, Ben and Lynn could always count on Steve. Whenever they needed something, Steve was there for them. But whenever there was something going great for Ben or Lynn, like when Ben found out that he got accepted for a full ride scholarship on a football, he had a huge party. He forgot to invite Steve. And when Lynn got married, she didn't invite Steve, her lifelong friend. Now, some people might say that the reason Ben and Lynn didn't invite Steve was because he was weird. He wasn't cool. The things he did, the things he said, and he was a quiet kid, he just wasn't going to be the life of the party. In fact, some people might say he was a downer at the parties. Even though Steve never got invited to these parties and these great events, he would always send them gifts. A wedding gift, congratulate them, even though he knew sometimes he would never get a thank you out of them. It was at this point the young adult leader had asked his class, "Now, how would you feel if you were Steve in this story?" His class pretty much said, "Man, I feel awful about that." Some would even say, "Hey, I would have dumped Ben and Lynn. They didn't appreciate me. It just seems like they're just using Steve in that story." Then the young adult leader had asked his class, "Have you ever been Ben or Lynn in this story?" And a couple of them were like, "Oh, right off the bat, no, we would never be like Ben or Lynn." While some were kind of hesitant with their answer because they were thinking, did I ever do wrong to somebody like that? So after the class had quieted down, the young adult leader had asked another question or gave another statement. What if I told you that there are some Christians, in fact, even me at sometimes, were like Ben and Lynn in the story? At this point, the entire class had erupted. "Oh my gosh, no, not you. You're always a good guy. In fact, you're our role model. We learned a lot from being a Christian because you told us about the bad things so we wouldn't do them. You're a great guy. You're never like Ben and Lynn." So then after the class had quieted down, the young adult leader had then said this, "I want you to remember that story of Ben and Lynn and Steve, but this time I want you to substitute God's name for Steve's name." So the young adults, the group, they were sitting there, they were thinking, God would be there for Ben and Lynn during their hard times. He would be there whenever they would call on him. But Ben and Lynn, they sometimes wouldn't even remember about God during their good times. After that, the rest of the class, basically, they had learned their lesson. It's a lesson that a lot of us have a hard time with because it's so easy to forget. Sometimes, as Christians, we only remember to praise God or pray to God whenever we have something wrong happening in our lives. we forget to thank Him. Thank Him for the fact that we have grass on the fields. Thank Him for the fact that our harvest had grown and we have food to put in our bellies. Thank God for the fact that He helped warm the heart of somebody who was cold. And because of that generosity, they paid it forward and they helped us during bad times. And sometimes we forget to invite God into our lives when we have those joyous moments. Sometimes the only thing we think of is like, yeah, I deserve that. That was me. It was all me. But God has had a hand in it. So as you go about your day, your week, your month, I ask that you remember to give God thanks, to praise God every once in a while, and not just pray during the bad times. I thank you for your time.